All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We're all about taking those things you want to know more about and making them both easy and fun to understand. And you're here because you're the kind of person who wants to be in the know, who wants to have the edge. And today, well, we're diving into something super useful, how to communicate in English more politely and professionally.
You got it. And you've given us a ton of great material to work with. Everything from the power of specific words, like the ones we choose, the tone we use, what to do and what not to do in emails, how to disagree without making things awkward, even mastering the art of small talk.
Think of it like this. It's your shortcut to better English communication, no matter what you're doing. Whether you're running a meeting, writing an important email, or just chatting with colleagues, we're going to pull out the best tips and give you clear examples so you can use them right away and avoid those little misunderstandings that can happen. So let's get started. And I think the best place to begin is with something really basic. How the words we choose can make a big difference.
You know, it's so interesting to see how just a small change in the words we use can totally change how our message comes across. And the research you gave me has some awesome real-world examples that show this.
Yeah, totally. Like, imagine you're at a restaurant and you want to see the menu. If you say, give me the menu, it sounds kind of demanding, maybe even a little rude, right? But if you say, could I please see the menu, it's a whole different vibe.
Absolutely. Adding please and using could makes it a polite request instead of an order. And this shows something important about politeness in English. We often use indirect language. So instead of directly saying what you want, you're hinting at it or expressing a preference. What do you think about that indirectness? Why is it so important?
Hmm, that's a good question. I guess it kind of gives the other person a choice. It's not like you're bossing them around
Yeah.
so they don't feel pressured.
Exactly. It's all about respecting that the other person has the right to say yes or no. Being indirect shows that you're not trying to force them to do anything.
Makes sense. And it's the same when you need a hand from a coworker. Saying, help me with this report can sound a bit like you're telling them what to do.
All right, but when you ask, would you mind helping me with this report? You're being more thoughtful. You're recognizing that you're asking for their time and effort, and that usually creates a much better, more collaborative environment.
And you know what else I found really interesting in the research? It was this little phrase, I was wondering if. It seems so simple, but it makes a request sound so much smoother.
Yeah, it's amazing how much difference it makes. Like, if you ask someone, can you finish this today? It's direct, but it can also sound kind of pushy.
But when you rephrase it as, I was wondering if you might be able to finish this today, it just sounds so much nicer. You're still getting your point across, but in a way that's less demanding. It even gives them a chance to explain if there's a problem.
Exactly. It invites a conversation instead of just laying down the law. And that brings up an important point for our listeners to think about. You know, in your own communication in English, are there places where you could use softer language to make things go more smoothly and create a more positive vibe? Something worth considering, right?
Definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
But it's not just about what we say, it's how we say it too. Our tone of voice and how our voice goes up and down, that matters just as much. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. That classic example saying, I didn't say you were wrong in a normal voice versus saying it in a really defensive way, it shows you exactly what I mean. Same words, but the meaning changes completely depending on how you say it.
So true. When someone talks in a flat, monotone kind of way, it can sound like they don't care, even if they really do. And then there's the opposite. If someone's tone is really sharp or loud, it can sound aggressive, even if they don't mean to be.
And even a polite phrase like, excuse me, could I ask a question? Can go wrong if you don't say it right. Like if you rush through it and your voice doesn't change at all, it can still sound rude even though you used polite
But
words.
if you say it with your voice going up a little at the end, like you're really asking, and you use a friendly tone, it shows you're being considerate. Like you're actually thinking about the other person.
The advice to record yourself speaking is so useful here. It can be surprising to hear how you sound to other people, and it can help you figure out if you need to change your intonation to sound more natural and friendly. Have you ever tried recording yourself?
Not super often, but I can see how it would be helpful. It's like getting a fresh perspective on something you usually don't think about too much.
Mm.
Okay, so we talked about speaking. What about writing? Specifically, professional emails and business stuff. Politeness and clarity are super important there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That comparison in the research about those two emails to a boss is a perfect example. That direct send me the report by tomorrow email. Yeah, that's exactly what not to do.
It sounds so demanding, like almost like an order, doesn't it? There's zero consideration for the person's time
Mm.
or what else they might have to do.
Right. And then there's the other one, the could you please send me the report by tomorrow? That would be really helpful email. That one uses polite words like please, and it even explains why it's important to get the report, by saying that would be really helpful. It makes the whole request sound a lot more reasonable.
And the research did a great job breaking down the parts of a professional email. It gives you a clear structure to follow.
Yep. All those elements are important. You start with a polite greeting like dear name or hello name, then you add a nice opening line like I hope you're doing well. After that, you clearly say why you're emailing, maybe something like I'm reaching out to ask about. And when you make your request, you use polite phrasing like would you be able to?
And to finish it off, you add a professional closing, something like looking forward to your response. And then sign off with best regards, your name. It just makes the whole email feel more polished.
And the example they gave in the research really puts it all together. The subject line is short and to the point, request for report submission. And then the body of the email has all the right parts, all written in a nice, polite way. It shows you exactly how to do it.
It's night and day compared to that short, blunt email. And it really shows how putting a little extra effort into your emails can make you look more professional and build better relationships with the people you work with. So let's move on to something a little trickier. How do you handle disagreements and tough conversations without being rude? This is so important for getting things done and keeping things positive with people.
Definitely. And the research has some great phrases you can use to soften things when there's conflict. Like instead of saying, you're wrong about this, which can be a bit harsh, you can try, I see your point, but I have a different perspective. It's a much more diplomatic way to disagree.
It's like you're saying, hey, I hear you, but here's another way to think about it.
Exactly. You're showing respect for the other person's opinion before you share your own, which makes them less likely to get defensive. It's the same idea with switching out, no, that won't work for, I understand your idea, but I think we might need another approach. You're shifting the focus to finding a solution together instead of just shooting down their suggestion.
It's all about seeing disagreements as different viewpoints, or maybe just a need to explore other options instead of a big fight.
And the general advice they give for those really heated conversations is spot on. Stay calm, use those softening phrases we just talked about, and make sure you acknowledge the other person's point of view, even if you don't agree with it in the end. These things can really help to calm things down and make it easier to have a productive conversation.
Great tips. Now let's wrap up with something that's often overlooked. Everyday conversations and the art of small talk. This is crucial for building relationships and just sounding natural and approachable, whether you're at work or just hanging out.
The research makes a really good point about how asking closed questions, like just saying, how are you, can lead to those really short, generic answers. But when you ask more open-ended questions, like, how has your week been so far? You're inviting people to share more. Why do you think those open-ended questions work so well?
I think it shows you actually care. It's like you're saying, tell me more, not just waiting for a quick one-word answer.
You got it. It encourages the other person to open up, and that creates more opportunities to connect and keep the conversation going. And for those first meetings or when you're meeting someone new, asking, what do you do for work and what do you enjoy doing in your free time are perfect ways to find common ground and start building a relationship.
So the big takeaway here is to go beyond those surface-level greetings and show genuine interest in the other person. That's how you have more meaningful conversations.
All right, so let's sum it all up. In our deep dive today, we talked about how choosing the right words can make a huge difference, how tone of voice and intonation matter just as much as the words themselves, what makes a professional email really shine, how to disagree politely and effectively, and how to master the art of small talk. We wanted to give you practical, actionable advice that you can use right away to improve your communication in English.
And that leads to a final thought for you to chew on. Think about everything we've talked about today. How could using just one of these techniques, like that subtle, I was wondering if, phrase, or being more aware of your tone, how could that change your next interaction in English, even in a small way?
Imagine how making those little changes could make your communication more positive, more professional, and more effective in every part of your life.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We're confident that exploring this research together has given you valuable knowledge and practical strategies that you can start using today to communicate more effectively. See you next time.